Due date calculation. Doctors estimate the due date by calculating 40 weeks of pregnancy beginning from the first day of the last menstrual period. So, you've just found out the big news, or maybe you're just starting to think about it. One of the first things that comes to mind after the initial shock and excitement is when is this little human actually going to arrive? It feels like a lifetime away, but suddenly, every day counts. It's a date that will anchor everything from planning baby showers to picking out names. And it all starts with a seemingly simple calculation that often confuses people, especially those new to this adventure. Let's break down this initial milestone, because it's a lot more interesting than just counting on a calendar. When doctors talk about a due date, they're not pulling it out of a hat. It's an estimate, a careful projection based on a 40-week timeline. This isn't 40 weeks from the moment conception occurs, which is a common misconception. Instead, it's a full 280 days calculated from a very specific starting point, the first day of your last menstrual period. Yeah, you heard that right. Even before conception officially happens, even before that egg is fertilized and makes its journey, the clock for your pregnancy due date has already started ticking. It feels a bit like you're getting a head start on the race before the gun even fires, doesn't it? This method has been the standard for decades, and while it might seem a little counterintuitive at first, there's a good reason behind it. The tricky part about pinpointing the exact moment of fertilization is, well, it's pretty impossible for most people without advanced medical tracking. But the first day of your last period, that's a solid, trackable date for many. It gives medical professionals a consistent, reliable starting point to measure against, allowing them to monitor growth and development with a standardized timeline, ensuring everyone is on the same page. This estimated due date, or EDD, becomes the North Star of your pregnancy journey. It helps your healthcare team schedule important ultrasounds, screenings, and checkups at the right times, making sure both you and the baby are progressing as expected. It's a foundational piece of information that sets the pace for the entire 9 months, giving structure to what might otherwise feel like a wild, unpredictable ride into parenthood. So, while it's an estimated date, don't underestimate its importance. It's the first official milestone, a tangible marker that transforms the abstract idea of a baby into a concrete timeline. It's the date you'll circle on your calendar, the one friends and family will ask about, and the one that will silently guide you through every craving, every kick, and every doctor's appointment until you finally meet your little one. Early detection. By the time a woman is aware she is pregnant, she is already close to 4 weeks along. The moment of realization, seeing those 2 pink lines, getting the confirmation call, it's often portrayed in movies as this immediate, dramatic event that starts the countdown. But the reality is that by the time you're actually aware you're pregnant, the biological clock is already running on a significant head start. You aren't starting at day 1 of the baby's existence. In fact, you're usually already approaching the 1-month mark. This can be a mind-bending concept for people to grasp, especially for those trying to track every detail of their cycle perfectly. Following that 40-week calculation, which starts from the first day of your last period, the initial stages of pregnancy are actually quite silent. Conception, where the egg and sperm finally meet, usually happens around week 2 of this timeline. The newly fertilized egg, or zygote, then spends the next 7 to 10 days making a grand, leisurely trip down the fallopian tube, all while rapidly dividing its cells. By the time this tiny, traveling cluster of cells successfully implants itself into the soft, nutrient-rich lining of the uterine wall, the calendar is already hovering around the 3 to 4 week mark. This implantation is the critical moment when the body truly knows a pregnancy is underway, because it starts releasing a measurable amount of human chorionic gonadotropin, the famous HCG, which is the key hormone home pregnancy tests are looking for. For most women with regular cycles, the first definitive sign that prompts them to take a test is a missed period. This happens approximately 4 weeks after the start of their last one. So, the day you finally take the test and see that life-changing positive result, the baby to be is technically already a few weeks into its incredible foundational journey. It's a classic example of how nature operates powerfully behind the scenes before making a grand, public announcement. This early detection timeline is why your doctor, at your first prenatal appointment, will tell you you're 4 weeks pregnant, even if it feels like only a few days have passed since you got the positive test result. It powerfully highlights the efficiency and speed of early development. You might just be getting used to the idea, but your body is already hard at work, building the initial support system and transforming from just 2 cells into a rapidly developing cluster of organized life. This knowledge is particularly crucial for young adults making lifestyle adjustments, since you're already several weeks in by the time you know the choices you made before the positive test, like managing stress or cutting out risky habits, were actually vital during those initial, most vulnerable weeks of development. It's a powerful reminder that you have, in essence, been a silent incubator for the first month, and now you can jump right into the exciting next chapter of nurturing this amazing 40-week-long journey. Fertilization window. Pregnancy occurs if fertilization takes place within a 5 to 7 day window after the egg is released, usually around the 14th day of the menstrual cycle. If the first-trimester taught us anything, it's that the early stages of pregnancy are a finely tuned biological dance, and nowhere is that more evident than in the narrow window where fertilization actually has to occur. We're talking about a very specific and relatively brief period of time that determines whether a potential pregnancy becomes a reality. This isn't a leisurely, month-long process. It's a tight, expertly managed timeline that relies on perfect coordination between the egg and the sperm. The whole process hinges on ovulation, the moment when a mature egg is released from the ovary. For someone with a textbook 28-day cycle, this usually happens right around the 14th day. This event is the starting pistol for the fertilization race, but here's where the timing gets incredibly precise and a little unforgiving. The egg itself has an extremely limited lifespan once it's released. It only survives and remains viable for fertilization for about 12 to 24 hours. That might sound like an impossible deadline, but the incredible thing about the reproductive system is that it builds in a buffer, expanding the actual conception window far beyond that single day. This is because sperm are built for endurance. Once they are inside the body, they can actually survive and wait patiently in the reproductive tract for up to 5 days, and sometimes even 7, ready for the moment the egg finally makes its appearance. So, the true window of opportunity for pregnancy isn't just the day of ovulation, but the days leading up to it. If you have intercourse in the 5 days before the egg is released, this hardy sperm can be lying in wait, ready to meet the egg the moment it exits the ovary. The actual fertilization, therefore, must occur within that flexible 5 to 7 day fertile window that surrounds the day of ovulation. Understanding this specific timing is crucial for anyone trying to conceive or trying to prevent it. It demystifies the process, turning the abstract idea of getting pregnant into a matter of precise biological timing. It shows why intercourse on the day of ovulation is high risk, but also why the days immediately preceding it are equally, if not more, important due to the sperm's surprising staying power within the female body. Ultimately, the successful union that leads to a new life is a delicate race against the clock. It requires the egg to be released at the right time and the sperm to have traveled and survived long enough to intercept it in that tiny, critical 24-hour period while the egg is still viable. This brief, powerful interaction is the defining moment that sets the stage for the rest of the 9-month journey. Embryo implantation. The fertilized egg, or embryo, travels down the fallopian tube and attaches to the wall of the uterus for the remaining 9 months. We've just discussed that precise moment of fertilization, that initial meeting of egg and sperm. But that's just the beginning of a crucial journey. Once the egg is successfully fertilized, it officially becomes a zygote, which then quickly begins to divide and is soon referred to as an embryo. This tiny, rapidly growing bundle of cells is now facing its first major logistical challenge, getting to its final, permanent home, which is the uterus itself. The journey from the fertilization site in the fallopian tube down to the uterus takes several days. During this travel period, the embryo isn't just floating around. It is constantly undergoing mitosis, dividing from one cell into 2, then 4, then 8, eventually forming a complex structure called a blastocyst. It's a miracle of cellular engineering happening in miniature, all while the embryo is essentially drifting towards the main chamber of the reproductive system. The end game for this journey is implantation. This is arguably one of the most critical steps in early pregnancy. Think of the uterus lining as a warm, carefully prepared bed thickened and enriched with blood vessels and nutrients, specifically waiting for this new arrival. The embryo must successfully burrow itself into this uterine wall, attaching firmly and creating a sustainable connection that will last for the remaining 9 months of development. If this critical attachment doesn't happen successfully, if the embryo fails to implant or implants in the wrong place, the pregnancy cannot continue in a healthy way. This is why the state of the uterine lining, which is meticulously prepared by hormones throughout the cycle, is so vital. It's a literal docking procedure where the tiny embryo taps into the mother's blood supply, securing its place and ensuring it has a direct line for nourishment and growth. Once the implantation is complete, the embryo is finally secure in its new environment. The uterus wall becomes its base of operations, the anchor for the entire future of the pregnancy. It's no longer a traveler. It has claimed its territory. This permanent attachment is what allows the subsequent structures, like the placenta, to begin forming and taking over the vital functions necessary for the massive growth that is about to occur. So, while the flash of fertilization is exciting, the slow, determined process of implantation is the quiet victory that confirms the start of a viable pregnancy. It marks the transition from a potential life to a secured life, establishing the fundamental connection that will nurture, protect, and sustain the growing baby until the moment it's ready to meet the world. Placenta's role. The placenta is formed early in the pregnancy to take over the function of nourishing the baby and removing waste products. Now that the embryo has successfully implanted, it needs a permanent, high-performance life support system. This is where one of the most incredible, yet often overlooked, temporary organs enters the stage, the placenta. It's not just a secondary structure. It is, quite literally, the life force of the baby throughout the entire pregnancy, and it begins to form almost immediately after successful implantation. The placenta is nothing short of a biological marvel, a temporary organ grown specifically for the job of supporting the developing fetus, and it needs to be ready to function quickly. It establishes an intricate connection between the mother's blood supply and the developing baby's system. Think of it as a complex, highly efficient biological filter and transfer station built from scratch to manage all the baby's needs. Its main function is a delicate two-way street. On one hand, the placenta acts as the baby's lung, kidney, and digestive system all rolled into one. It draws oxygen and essential nutrients like glucose, vitamins, and minerals directly from the mother's blood and passes them seamlessly to the fetus. The health and quality of the placenta directly impact the baby's ability to grow, thrive, and reach its full potential. On the other hand, it has the equally vital job of waste management. The developing baby produces metabolic waste products, similar to how we do, and the placenta is responsible for filtering those wastes like carbon dioxide and urea out of the baby's blood and transferring them back into the mother's bloodstream. The mother's body then takes over to process and eliminate these wastes, keeping the baby's environment clean and healthy. What makes the placenta truly astonishing is its temporary nature. It's fully functional for 9 months, growing and adapting as the baby grows, performing all the necessary life support tasks, and then, once the baby is born, it's done. It serves its purpose entirely and is delivered shortly after the baby, a truly disposable organ grown on demand. The placenta's early formation and immediate takeover of these vital functions frees the mother's existing organs from having to perform these tasks for 2. It's a testament to evolutionary efficiency, ensuring that the baby has a dedicated, personalized, and robust system for nourishment and waste removal right from those foundational early months until the moment of birth. Hormone-related symptoms, nausea, vomiting, and breast pain in the early months are primarily due to pregnancy hormones and the body working hard to support the baby's growth. The first trimester is often called the secret stage of pregnancy because, while you might not look pregnant yet, your body is loudly and aggressively announcing the changes inside. We're talking about the infamous morning sickness, the sudden fatigue, and the incredibly tender breasts. These symptoms are real, they are intense, and they are usually the first physical evidence that your body is fully committed to this new mission of growing a human. These symptoms aren't just random annoyances. They are direct side effects of the massive hormonal upheaval happening in your system. The body is suddenly producing astonishing quantities of hormones like HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, and progesterone. These levels skyrocket in the first few weeks, creating a biological environment necessary for the pregnancy to survive, but resulting in a temporary internal chaos for you. Take progesterone, for example. Its job is crucial. It relaxes the smooth muscles, which helps prevent the uterus from contracting prematurely and ensures the uterine lining remains thick and supportive for the baby. But as a side effect, it also relaxes the muscles in your digestive tract, slowing down digestion. This contributes heavily to that sluggish feeling and, yes, the dreaded nausea and vomiting that can strike at any hour, not just in the morning. The breast tenderness is another classic symptom driven primarily by the rising levels of estrogen and progesterone. Your body is already prepping for its next major role, feeding the baby. These hormones trigger growth in the milk ducts and fat layers in the breasts, causing that painful sensitivity. It's a remarkable physiological commitment, the body preparing for a future that is still months away, all thanks to chemical signaling. In essence, these uncomfortable early symptoms are a weird, slightly painful reassurance that your pregnancy is progressing. They are signs that your endocrine system is working overtime, pumping out the exact chemicals required to sustain the implanted embryo and build its support structure. The body is essentially performing its most intense, critical work during these initial weeks, which is why you feel so incredibly drained. So, while these early months might feel like a never-ending battle with the bathroom and the urge to nap, remember that the intensity of the symptoms is often a reflection of the profound and essential hard work your body is doing behind the scenes. It's the cost of admission for this incredible journey, and a clear signal that growth and development are underway. Fetal movement: the mother typically feels the baby's movements, known as quickening, for the first time around the 5th month. Initially as a gentle flutter, for the first few months, the pregnancy can feel like a secret, internal experiment. You see the changes, you feel the symptoms, but there's no direct, tangible proof of the life growing inside. That all changes dramatically around the middle of the journey with one of the most exciting and defining milestones: quickening. This is the moment the mother finally feels the baby's movements for the very first time, transforming the experience from an abstract idea into a direct, physical connection. For a first-time mother, this experience usually happens around the 5th month, or roughly between weeks 18 and 22. It's important to note it often doesn't feel like the dramatic kicks you see in movies yet. Instead, the sensation is far more subtle, easily mistaken for something else. You might dismiss it as a little gas bubble moving, or maybe just a subtle twitch in your stomach. That initial feeling is why the term flutter is often used. It's gentle, almost like a tiny goldfish swimming inside your lower abdomen, or the soft pop of a bubble. This subtlety is due to the baby's size at this stage. Although they've grown significantly, they are still relatively small, and their movements are cushioned by amniotic fluid and the uterine wall. The feeling is fleeting and light, demanding your close attention to recognize its significance. This milestone is a huge psychological shift for the parent. Up until this point, the baby's development has been tracked primarily through doctor appointments and ultrasounds. Quickening is the first confirmation that the baby is not only growing but is an active, responsive little individual. It solidifies the connection, making the pregnancy feel exponentially more real and personal than any blood test or scan ever could. As the weeks progress from this initial flutter, the movements will gradually become more noticeable, transitioning from bubbles to gentle taps, and eventually, yes, you guessed it, to the full-blown, undeniable kicks and jabs that become a regular feature of the 3rd trimester. But that first flutter, that first tiny signal, remains a unique and deeply emotional memory. So, for those in the second trimester waiting for this sign, be patient and attentive. That gentle, mysterious twitch deep within you might just be your little one sending their very first message, confirming their presence and beginning the beautiful, long-term conversation between parent and child. Second trimester relief. Many women experience a decrease in symptoms like vomiting and frequent urination during the fourth month, the beginning of the second trimester. If the first 3 months of pregnancy felt like an intense hormonal marathon, where you were constantly battling nausea and running to the bathroom, then welcoming the fourth month, the official start of the second trimester, often feels like finally reaching the finish line. This is the stage often referred to as the golden period of pregnancy, and for a very good reason. Many of those relentless, early symptoms finally begin to subside, bringing with them a profound sense of relief and renewed energy. The reason behind this welcome shift is directly linked to the hormones we talked about earlier. In the first trimester, the body is furiously establishing the pregnancy, causing those extreme fluctuations in HCG and progesterone. By the fourth month, the placenta is fully formed and has taken over the primary role of hormone production, stabilizing the massive surges that cause so much trouble. Your body has adjusted, and the acute hormonal chaos begins to settle down. The most noticeable change for many is the rapid decline of morning sickness and constant nausea. While some women may experience it longer, for the majority, the intense vomiting often tapers off significantly as the second trimester begins. This newfound ability to eat a meal without fear of immediate consequences can feel like a superpower, allowing you to finally enjoy food and focus on balanced nutrition for the baby. Alongside the nausea relief, you often get a break from the constant need to urinate. In the first trimester, the rapidly growing uterus presses directly on the bladder, leading to frequent trips to the restroom. As the fourth month begins, the uterus usually shifts upward and out of the pelvis and into the abdominal cavity. This change in positioning takes the direct pressure off the bladder, granting you a temporary, glorious reprieve from that constant urgency. This reduction in discomfort, coupled with the stabilization of hormones, typically results in a noticeable boost of energy. It's the perfect time to tackle tasks that felt impossible just weeks before, like preparing the nursery, shopping for maternity clothes, or even planning a relaxing baby moon. It is the stage where many people feel their best and truly start enjoying the visible progression of their pregnancy. So, for those enduring the intense struggles of the first trimester, hang in there. The beginning of the second trimester often brings a much-needed wave of physical comfort and emotional uplift, transforming the journey from a survival task into a genuinely joyful and productive experience. It's your body's way of rewarding you for getting through the critical, foundational work of the first 12 weeks. Developing senses. By the 7th month, the baby's eyes are opening, and the nerves connecting the ears to the brain are developed enough for the baby to listen to and recognize the mother's voice. As we enter the 3rd trimester, the baby shifts from simply growing larger to rapidly refining the systems it will use to interact with the world outside. By the 7th month, or around week 28, the pace of sensory development is truly astonishing. The baby is no longer just passively floating. It's preparing to become a fully functional human being, capable of seeing, hearing, and, most importantly, recognizing the comforting sounds of its earliest world. One of the major milestones at this stage is vision. After months of developing in the dark, the baby's eyes are finally developed enough to open. Although the uterine environment doesn't offer much to look at, mostly a rosy red glow from the light filtering through the mother's abdomen, the act of opening their eyes is a critical step in finalizing the development of the visual pathway and preparing their eyes for life outside the womb. But the real marvel of the 7th month is the development of the auditory system. The nerves connecting the baby's ears to its developing brain are now mature enough to effectively process sound. The outside world, though muffled by amniotic fluid and the layers of the mother's body, is no longer silent. The baby is constantly listening to the internal sounds of its environment, like the rhythmic beat of the mother's heart and the constant gurgle of her digestive system. However, The most significant sound the baby begins to clearly register and commit to memory is the mother's voice. Because sound waves travel through the fluid and tissue, the mother's voice is transmitted not only externally but also internally through her own body. This dual transmission makes her voice particularly resonant and distinct compared to other external noises. This ability to hear and recognize the voice creates a powerful, immediate bond. By the time the baby is born, it will show a distinct preference for the sound of its mother's voice over that of a stranger, demonstrating that the learning process, the connection, and the recognition have been taking place for months inside the womb. It is the beginning of communication, even before speech is possible. This sensory development is why talking, reading, and singing to your bump becomes so popular and important in the third trimester. You are not just talking to a belly, you are engaging in a powerful form of pre-birth communication, teaching your baby the most comforting and recognizable sound they will rely on for security and bonding once they finally arrive. Signs of labor in the final month. Key signs that labor may be approaching include the bloody show mucus with blood and contractions that become stronger, longer, and more frequent. You've reached the final month. The waiting game is almost over, but the anxiety is at an all-time high. Everyone, friends, family, and most importantly, you is waiting for the signs that the main event, labor, is about to begin. While every birth is unique, there are a few classic, recognizable signals that the body sends to let you know that the long journey of pregnancy is finally coming to its spectacular conclusion. One of the key, immediate physical signs is known as the bloody show. This is not necessarily a sudden gush of blood, but rather the passage of the mucus plug, which has been sealing the cervix throughout the pregnancy to protect the baby from infection. As the cervix begins to soften, thin out, and open, a process called effacement and dilation, this protective plug is expelled, often appearing as thick mucus tinged with a little bit of blood. Another major sign is the change in contractions. For weeks, you may have experienced Braxton Hicks or practice contractions, which are usually irregular and painless. But true labor contractions follow a predictable and undeniable pattern. They become stronger, longer, and most critically, more frequent. This increasing consistency is the hallmark of active labor, signaling that the uterus is seriously beginning its work to push the baby down and out. When you start timing them, you'll notice that these true contractions don't go away if you change positions or walk around. They maintain their rhythm and intensity. They start spacing out evenly, perhaps 10 minutes apart, then 7, then 5, and they feel progressively more intense. This steady, escalating pattern is the difference between practice contractions and the real deal, prompting that final, essential call to the hospital or birthing center. A less dramatic, but equally important, sign is the mother's intuitive feeling. Many women report a sudden surge of nesting energy, cleaning and organizing everything around them, or a calm sense of mental preparation and focus. This primal drive is often a psychological signal that the body is recognizing its impending role and preparing the emotional and physical environment for the baby's arrival. Ultimately, these signs, from the expulsion of the mucus plug to the undeniable pattern of escalating contractions, are the body's final, powerful countdown. They are the signals that transform the quiet anticipation of the final month into the active, intense, and exhilarating process of labor, leading directly to the moment you finally meet the little human you've been nurturing for 40 weeks.